Hi friends, we are back with our poetry lesson for today. In front of you, you are going to need this reader-writer notebook labeled with poetry. If you do not have this workbook, make sure you take out a piece of paper and a pencil. So I'm going to first go over our reading objectives for today. Our first reading objective for the day is that I can read closely. We have been doing this since the beginning of the school year, so that should be a familiar one. And our second objective for the day is that I can explain how the author uses structural elements. And we'll talk about that one in just a few. So I'm going to have you open up your reader-writer notebook to page 18. So we are going to start on page 18. So your 18 should look somewhat similar to my page 18. On page 18 and 19, because remember this poem has 2 pages, you'll find the poem, and then I have marked up my poem. So I have done a close read of the poem, and I have stopped, jotted, and I have marked it up. So I'm going to go over this first before we get into the task for today. So the poem again is titled Casey at the Bat by Ernest Lawrence Thayer. And if we look at what I have done to this poem, you can see I used lots of different colors. Let's try and get this a little more focused. I have used lots of different colors, so I am going to just go over a few points that I have outlined on here, and you can mimic my poem. Unless yours is already marked up, that's wonderful, or you can mimic what I have here. So if I look at the top up here, I gave myself a little key, and in this key, I have shown that this green color is marking my stanzas. This purple color is marking up the verse or all of my lines of the poem, and then I also have pink and blue that I have used to represent the rhythm, rhyme, and a rhyme scheme in the poem. So we'll talk about those more as we go through. Let's look at the green first. So if I go and look at all the green parts, and if you remember, I have given you these definitions to look at. If we go to the definition of stanza, a division in a poem named for the number of lines it contains. So let's go over here to our poem again. And if you see, I marked out a lot of stanzas, and each stanza contained 4 lines. So if you see 4, 8, 12, 16, each chunk only has 4. So I labeled all of these, each chunk of 4 lines with a number. So if you see, I went through 1 through 7 on page 18, and then if I flip to the next page, page 19, I labeled 8 through 13. So I found that this poem has 13 stanzas. That's a lot. All right. Next, I went to identify the verse with purple in my poem. So if I go, and again, verse was the lines of the poem, I just went through and labeled every single tiny little line in there. And each line brought me all the way to, let's see, on page 19, 52 lines. This poem has 52 lines. Once I was finished there, I went back and I took blue and pink, and I labeled a few different things. So before we talk about them, let's first talk about the definitions of those words. So I identify the rhythm, and if you look here again, when we identify the rhythm, we are saying that this is the musical quality of the poem. And then I went back and I identified the rhyme. And if you remember, rhyme is words that end in the same sound. End rhyme. And then lastly, I identified a rhyme scheme, so the pattern of rhymes. So I did that by 2 different colors. Again, I identified one rhyme or rhythm by blue, and then I identified another one by pink. So I'm going to just read this first stanza labeled with number 1 if you'd like to follow along in your packet with me. First, I labeled that one, so I'm going to just read it to you one more time so that you can hear the rhyme and the rhythm that this poem makes. The outlook wasn't brilliant for the Mudville 9 that day. The score stood 4-2 with but no inning more to play. And then when Cooney died at first and Barrows did the same, a sickly silence fell upon the patrons of the game. So if we go back and look at the ending sounds to each sentence, and again our verses, each line, you will see day and play, those are rhyming words. And then you'll also see same and game, more rhyming words. And I continued this throughout the entire poem. We can go to page 19 quickly, and I can identify another. Let's go here. Stanza 9, lines 33 through 36. If I read this one quickly. From the benches black with people, there went upon a muffled roar, like the beating of the storm waves on a stern and distant shore. Kill him, the umpire shouted someone on the stand, and it's likely they'd a kill him had not Casey raised his hand. So again, roar and shore, and then also stand and hand. So those are the things I identified. If you have any questions on that, pause your video right now and take a minute to listen to the talk through of the poem one more time. And now we are going to flip to page 22. So we're moving on. We are on to, let me get my sheet here. We are on to page 22. And page 22 says, close read phase 2. Read Casey at the bat.
They're all outside. They're telling you to come.
What?
Go outside.
I'm trying to